and has represented us so ably ever since. She's on the Appropriations Committee. She has worked diligently year in and year out to reflect the values of Southeast and South Central and Southern Missouri. She is our Congresswoman, and our Congresswoman who resides here in Cape Girardeau, and a family, representing a family that I go back with to that 1980 campaign when I managed Bill Emerson's first campaign and got to know our current Congresswoman. And she is arriving now with us on stage with former United States Senator Rick Santorum, who she will be introducing. Ann Emerson, our Congresswoman, come on up, and she's the one who got Senator Santorum's Rick Santorum and Ann Emerson. Santorum, Karen Santorum. My friend John.
I am just amazed. I am amazed by your response to this great event at the Cape Girardeau Lincoln Day. And I really want to thank the Cape Girardeau Republican women for hosting us and for letting me bring a few guests. Let me read you all an observation from a great voice in our party. And I quote, "Two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who escaped from Castro, and in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other one and said, 'We don't know how lucky we are.' And the Cuban stopped and said, 'How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to.'" And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that the intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan for ourselves. That great voice was Ronald Reagan, and those words are from 1964. So now here we are, almost, you can clap, that's okay. Now here we are almost 50 years later, engaged in that same debate, just as urgent. How do we stop big spending, big government, and a weakness for letting bureaucrats plan our lives? Last month, every one of Missouri's 114 counties voted for Rick Santorum. But I think it made an important statement about Rick and about us. Leadership comes from passion and steadfastness. We follow great leaders because they carry us with them. Our experiences, our aspirations, our values, our virtues. We don't enjoy that depth of understanding in our current president, do we? Our current president is leading the government. He is not leading the nation. The Republican Congress is our foothold against the liberal media and the liberal agenda. But let me tell you this, it's also a front row seat to the unprecedented power grab by this administration. In the House, I know you know, we've passed bipartisan legislation to cut spending and eliminate dozens of job-killing regulations, and I can't tell you how many times I voted to repeal Obamacare. Whoa. We need to keep doing that. Rick Santorum land from a private citizen in Richmond, Virginia, with no plans to build anything on it. And then the next day, the government realizes that it needs to come up with $8 million to pay for it. One day, rural American counties, including our own Cape Girardeau County, face EPA regulations that will shut down businesses because there are too many cars driving up and down Interstate 55. And the next day, the administration temporarily suspends those requirements, and we get to wait and wonder. One day, a new pipeline from Canada to the United States clears a hurdle. 20,000 jobs, 500,000 barrels of oil a day, an $8 billion private sector investment. And the next day, President Obama shuts it down. That's what's wrong with government. But many of us are battling back. Last year, I cut President Obama's budget, my appropriations bill, by 25%. We made that number stick, and we forced the administration to do more with it. The House passed 40 job-creating bills in the last few months, stopping ridiculous rules like one to regulate pests on farms. And at the end of this month, the U.S. Supreme Court is going to decide whether the federal government can force us to buy health insurance. Now, if they can do that, what else can they make you do? Eat broccoli? Do exercises in the morning, like I need to do? Or watch MSNBC? This is what happens, y'all, when government relieves us our free will. Little by little, regulation by regulation, tax by tax. Have any of y'all ever seen the movie The Alamo? At one point, John Wayne, as Davy Crockett, says there's right and there's wrong. You get to do one or the other. You do the one and you're living. You do the other and you may be walking around, but you're dead as a beaver hat. Well, in the 20-plus years that I have known him, I've seen it firsthand. Rick Santorum does what's right. He understands the difficult tasks ahead, and he also understands the greatness of our nation. He can lead. And let me tell you this. Rick Santorum will make a great president. I'm sure going to be voting for him in next Saturday's caucuses. I hope you will be too. I'm going to work like the Dickens for the next week, for the next 6 months, and all the way to November to make him our nominee and our next president, and I sure hope you all will join me. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Rick Santorum.